What's the rudest question you've ever received? Had bad acne and stupid questions like, why don't you just wash your face or bathe every day? Oh, me too. I never tire of, have you tried washing more? Maybe you eat too much chocolate. Maybe you need to use more expensive products. No way, I totally didn't even think of that. I thought just, F it, I'll walk around for 15 years like a fricking pizza face, completely alienating myself from the rest of the world and being held back from jobs and doing the deed and partners while everyone else builds a fricking life for themselves because frick knows I don't want to wash twice a week. Yes, thank you. I do wash more than twice a week. Sometimes I wash on both days at the weekend. But in summer, when the hosepipe ban is on, I just go swimming in my local duck pond. I've snapped before when these kinds of questions come up. Let's just say it starts with a far too long lesson on how cystic acne works and ends with me explaining that the stuff I use on my face costs more than their iPhone. I'm not proud of this. Well, maybe a little. Are you self-conscious about your teeth? Well, I fricking am now. Are you self-conscious about your black eye? What black ow? Stares intensely at my face. How many times have you broken your nose? The answer is none. I've been asked if the government gives me compensation for being legally a midget. I do not have dwarfism, I'm just really short. Technically, you might qualify for what they're talking about. One of my aunts does, and same thing, she's just really short. My aunt does qualify but refused to get a disabled permit for her car because then she'd have to admit that she's legally a midget. Most common question asked by complete strangers, often without introduction because of the wheelchair, is, can you do stuff in the bedroom? Variations are, does your eggplant work? Can you get it up? Are you a virgin? But another classic is, how do you pee? For all of these questions, I of course perform a live demonstration. My brother gets that all the time from kids. Stuff like, why are your legs broken? He just replies, because I didn't eat my vegetables. Horrified children and smiling parents. More cute than rude. The kids I can understand being too young to not know better than to ask, but grown adults repeatedly asking about the groin functionality of strangers in wheelchairs strikes me as overwhelmingly rude. I wouldn't ask that to a friend, let alone a guy on the street. During the early 90s, I was sporting quite a plumage of long rocker hair, and during the winter and spring, or ski season, I also grew quite a thick beard. One day, I was at a gas station and I noticed two young kids staring at me intently. Their mother was also getting gas, but she was around on the other side of the car. The little boy must have been about 3 or 4, and the little girl was probably about 7 or 8. They were just staring at me. I finally said, "Hi, how are you guys doing?" The little boy turned and whispered something to his sister. She turned to me and said, "He wants to know if you're a boy or a girl." A little bit flummoxed by this forthright assault on my obvious manliness, I stammered, I'm a boy. She said by way of explanation, "He said he's never seen a boy with long hair before." "Well, some boys have long hair," I replied a bit defensively. "I know," she said, "I've seen lots of boys with long hair." "Really?" I replied. "Where?" "Oh, places like the dump." I worked at a Chinese restaurant as my first job, and you would not believe how often I got questions like, are they terrible to work for? Do they treat you well? Do you get paid on time and the full amount? Cripes, it made me so sick to my stomach. He was the best boss and manager I ever worked for, and those kinds of questions irked me to no end. As if he would be an awful boss based on his ethnicity. The biggest jerks that I've ever worked for were from right here. I even saw one butthole customer asking him as if he were a 12-year-old, "Do you live here?" pointing at the floor. He was asking my boss if he lived in his restaurant. My boss replies, "No, I don't live here. I live in a house in his suburb." Cripes. Beyond treating me like gold, he used to tell creepy guys right where to go if they were bothering me. Something that no other boss at a restaurant ever did for me. I always got a free meal every shift, plus he had me sit with his family every evening to enjoy a home-cooked meal at the end of each shift as well. Are you sure your acne medication is working? I work in a pharmacy, and a not-too-smart woman stared at my face and asked, "Do you have pox?" No, I don't have this mostly eradicated disease. I have some zits. Thanks for pointing it out, though. This. I get so many comments on my acne. If it looks worse, it's all about the latest remedy I just have to try. If it looks better, I must be taking care of myself. People who get normal breakouts really have no idea what it's like to have painful acne that never lets up. How does it feel to be cheated on? By the friend of a girl I once dated. I didn't know she was cheating. When I announced to the people of my local church that I was engaged, a woman came up and politely asked if my fiancé was overweight too. I don't think there's any way to phrase that question politely. Is your husband a big fatty fatter too, huh? Yeah, she is. Is your husband also a C-word? Why aren't you married yet? Well, Mom, I'm kind of a loser. My mum's entire family is convinced that I'm a lesbian and afraid to come out, and lately they've all been dropping these little passive-aggressive hints to make it clear that they're totally okay with it, so I should be comfortable telling them. They all get married and have babies quite young, so that's the only reason they can think of for why I haven't produced a husband and children at my advanced age. I just don't have the heart to tell them that I'm super awkward and weird and not nearly pretty enough to compensate for it. Thus, I'm the spinster cat lady. I too love my family. They're so kind-hearted and gentle and well-meaning. They're all trying their damnedest to do what they all genuinely and kind-heartedly believe is the right thing. I think it's really funny and very cute and sweet, to be honest. They're just wrong. It's simply incomprehensible to them that someone could go this long without a husband and be heterosexual. It happens, I promise. Since some people seem concerned about my romantic prospects, I'll let you know that I do all right for myself. I'm perhaps not marriage material, which is a drag sometimes because company and an active partner is extremely enjoyable. But I've never been wild about having kids, so I'm not all busted up about that at least. I do get the occasional roll in the hay from a Brazilian guy who surfs and plays guitar and has some righteous lats and sweet guns, and that's doing pretty well because he usually leaves shortly after, so I can get back to whatever I was doing before he showed up. No hearts are being broken there, it's all good. Finally decided to gain weight? I'm white and my ex-wife is black. Our kids are mixed but differ a lot in shades of darkness. My oldest son is almost as dark as her, while my younger daughter could pass for white. We were in the grocery store once, and we only had our daughter with us while my son was at preschool. My wife was at one end of the aisle with my daughter in the cart, and I was at the other end grabbing something. A very old lady, maybe in her 70s, came into the aisle on the same side as my wife and daughter, and she had a weird look of concern. I walked back over, and the old lady saw that we were together and started smiling in relief. As we walked away, she touched my arm and said, "Are you happy with her?" I didn't understand, so I asked her what she meant. She said, "Oh, I just mean, is she a good nanny? Would you recommend her services? My daughter needs one. She's using a Latina woman now, but I told her the problem with those people is if she steals something, the police won't be able to find her. She probably has no records. Anyway, I think it's absolutely wonderful that you let her come shopping with your child. People gave me such insults for letting our nanny do that 50 years ago, but you know, times were different." To this day, I still crack up when I remember the look on my ex-wife's face. I never knew eyes could get so wide. The funniest part about it was you couldn't even be mad because in that lady's mind, she was being very progressive and nice. I just politely corrected her and told her she was my wife. The lady seemed genuinely embarrassed, but then quickly concerned again. Honestly, when you are in an interracial marriage, you get so much discreet and indiscreet racism in public that you learn to A, not let it make you angry, and B, judge people based on their intentions. A lot of older people can express pretty racist views while having the best intentions. Sheesh. Well, at least you were able to laugh at it. It might be harder to take so well when you're the minority partner in that relationship, as a commenter here highlights. I had a client that this happened to. She was an army wife and said she quit taking her daughter out for walks on post because so many women could ask how much she was charging for babysitting. I will never forget the disgusted expression on her face and the tears in her eyes when she told me that story. "So, when's the little one coming?" says every single person you know, starting the day after you get married. It gets more intense as time goes on, and in our case, my wife had some trouble getting pregnant, which made it all the worse. I wish people better understood how hurtful this question can be when asked to a woman who may not be able to have kids. You want the question to stop? Answer with, "As soon as God quits killing them in the womb." They'll look extremely uncomfortable and never ask again. Unless they're my uncle, and then they'll laugh uproariously and ask every time they see you. I actually said something like this to someone. They knew we were having issues, but still thought it was okay to jokingly ask when we were going to have a baby. I replied, "When my body stops killing them." Cue awkward silence. While working front desk at a hotel. To note, I'm female. Me? "Hello, how can I help you?" Guy? "Is there a male on duty?" "No, I'm sorry. I'm the only one on duty at the moment." "Oh, well, I was looking to ask for some verbal directions, but if you're the only one here, do you know how to use Google? They have this thing called Maps." He actually spells out the word maps. "I can direct you how to use it, right?" Seriously, has every woman you've ever met been mentally impaired? I was in disbelief. I worked in an IT call center for dial-up customers. We mostly had older Bible Belt users. I got a guy on the phone. "Can I speak with a man?" "I assure you I'm very competent, etc., etc." "Don't use those big words on me and make me feel dumb. Get a man on the phone." So I transferred to the guy in the cube next to me, and then I heard my coworker say, "Yes, sir, I'm a man of color, as you put it. No, sir, there are no white men working at the moment. Would you like to try back later?" You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. How did you get invited? I don't know, maybe that one's just poorly phrased. How do you know the host? They could be looking for a common thread to start a conversation on. It seems likely. At my first adult party, read actual food, parents, no fireball, I was talking to a nice woman and I meant to ask her something like, "Sorry, what's your name again?" What I said was, "Who are you?" After chatting for 15 minutes. I must have seemed like a jerk. How can you be Hispanic and Jewish? This was asked to me by a coworker while I was interning, at age 19. So, are you legally a dwarf? Have you noticed how much weight you've gained? My friend's B-word of a stepmother while she was giving me a haircut. Ironically, I'd lost 20 pounds from the last time I saw her. One time I was walking to Walgreens when a woman approached me and asked if I could spare any change. I had like 50 cents in my pocket and I was in a good mood, so I decided to give it to her. I put the change in her hand and she stared at it for a few seconds, then looked up at me and says, "Is that it?" I couldn't believe she'd ask me that. Sure, it wasn't much, but I didn't have to give her anything. I said, "Yeah, that's all I have," and she scoffed and walked away. I saw her a few times after that, and after the way she had acted, I always turned her away. I came out of a store and a homeless woman asked me for change and I said I didn't have any, but I did have an extra protein bar if she wanted it. She responded with, "Ew, don't you have anything better?" Apparently, beggars can be choosers. So, does she not put out or is she just one of those women's lib types? I was calling about a job and I had to go through a manager before I got to the main hiring person. The manager was a nice guy, we talked for a bit and he told me he'd pass me on. The hiring person picks up and we start talking. He sounded a little old school douchey, but whatever, then he gets to the personal life. "Just so you know, this is a very family-oriented place. All of us have families and we consider it a very important thing." "Oh, that's good to hear. I'm actually engaged. We've been together for about 4 years. "Oh, that's great. Got any kids maybe on the way?" "Well, no, not yet. I was 21 at the time." "Oh, is she not putting out or is she just one of those women's lib types?" I knew then what a blue screen of death felt like because I could literally not process what he had said. For at least a minute. He asked if I was still there, and I lost my mind. I'd been job hunting for months, been told all sorts of horrible things, been ignored, treated like crap, and just had enough of it at that point. I unloaded on him and called the boss. He was also very nice. I told him that I'd had an issue with one of his managers. Without saying anything else, I heard on the other end, "God damn it, Jeff." Jeff was in fact the hiring manager I'd talked to. Why have you been hanging around me and my friends? Mean grade school memories. Are you Chinese or Japanese? I'm neither, by the way. I was asked if I'd been the victim of the unspeakable act when someone found out I was gay. I didn't realize how many wild assumptions I was dodging by being cis, although apparently even if you're just a non-conventional person you can draw them, as the following comment details. I had quite the opposite. My family members asked me, "Why didn't you tell us you're gay? We all knew it anyway." I'm not gay. In fact, I just got out of a long-term relationship when they asked me that. When introducing my first girlfriend to my alcoholic grandmother from Tennessee, seriously, the first words out of Grandma's mouth were, "You're screwing her, aren't ya?" Hell yeah, Grandma. Fist bumped that crap. I mean, yeah, that pretty much happened, but it was long before fist bumps existed. Not to me, but my cousin and her then boyfriend were in town for the meet the family routine. My grandmother, "Are you religious or do you still go to church?" My cousin's boyfriend, "I was raised Catholic, but I don't really go to church anymore." Oh, were you mistreated by a priest? Everyone at the dinner table looked everywhere else but at the poor guy. Are you autistic? After trying to overcome my social anxiety. Have you ever hit any of your girlfriends? No? Why would I do that? You know, because you're brown. That was a very awkward first date. A guy was chewing tobacco in my car and he asked if he could just spit it on the floor. Granted, my car was pretty messy, but come on, dude. Some strangers asked, "Are you Filipino?" Me? No, I'm... Are you just Mexican? Oh, that sucks. Boring. Walks away. I'm Colombian. Like Shakira Shakira. For all those wondering, my hips do not lie. And I'm starting to feel you, boy. Wait, you're Catholic? But you're Chinese. Further background, I'm Singaporean. Are you Jewish? Your nose is very Jewish. I'm not Jewish, but apparently my nose is very much Jewish. Jewish enough to be Jewish on its own regardless of my religious affiliation. I get this all the time too, which is funny because my Jewish friends will jump in and say, no, she has a pretty big nose. Look at it from the side. Thanks, guys. There have been some pretty awful ones regarding our decision to have an only child. The one that makes me want to react violently is, what will you do if something happens to him? I thought we were past the heir and a spare days. Apparently not. I've got 3. If I lost one, I'd lose my fricking mind and very possibly be rendered unfit to raise the other 2, who also lost their siblings. How is that a better scenario? You're white, so I don't have to pay you back, right? After I'd lent him some money the day before. I was out for dinner with a friend of mine, his dad and the guy that had fixed his car. The guy who had fixed his car asked how we knew each other, and my friend answered that we met while studying abroad. Then the guy asked, "You studied abroad and that's the one you picked? Thanks, bud. You're a real catch yourself." When are you going to quit your day job to stay home and have kids? This one beats all of these rude ones. My dad died in a horrific accident over spring break, and I had to witness the whole thing. It was a boating accident in Florida. So I got back to school, and this kid, knowing full well what happened, said, "Hey man, so how was Florida?" I didn't retaliate, just asked him if he knew what happened. After he replied yes, I just walked away, never talking to him again. Not to me, but to my mum, whose son was born with apparent disabilities. "Oh, you must have smoked during pregnancy, didn't you?" "So, how's your junk and sack?" "It's a fair enough question. I had testicular cancer." "When are you going to try and have kids?" To me and my wife, like everyone is super fertile and can conceive a child whenever they try. "So, do you have that transmitted disease?" Because, of course, having that is a prerequisite for being gay. At 18, I took a trip with my family to Puerto Rico. Our first day there, a local that we were talking to put his hand on my little round potbelly and said, "You'll be a mother soon. How wonderful." I was just kind of chubby and was wearing an oddly fitting dress. I cried a lot. I was 8.5 months pregnant and a woman said, "Do you know that a gym membership is cheaper than eating at McDonald's every day?" When I told her I was pregnant, she just went on to say, "Are you doing your Kegel exercises? Better hope your hoo-ha stays tight. I would recommend just having a C-section so your husband stays interested." People are fricking rude. Also, you have to admire the way that this woman effortlessly pivoted from one kind of crappy and condescending advice to another. She truly has a repertoire loaded and ready to fire from the hip. Did your dad want a boy? I'm a lady. My first name is a very traditional masculine name, Jack. I was not named after my father, but rather 2 other ladies in my family. One named herself, paternal great-great-aunt, whose given name was Oda. She didn't care for it, and the other was named after her father when he died of Spanish influenza right before she was born, great-grandmother. I go by my middle name, which is infinitely more feminine, if still unisex. My name is a source of pride for my family, it's unique and was carried by 2 beautiful women right before my parents thought that I was special enough to have it too. To get to the point, I get asked that question every time a stranger finds out my name, no matter if I'm picking up a prescription, getting my driver's license renewed, or getting fingerprinted for work. I hear it at least twice a month. It's none of your business whether my dad wanted a son or was happy with the daughter he got, but thanks for reminding me that I'll never live up to his standards because I don't have a male member. Thanks for reminding me that our family name will die because I'm a girl. Yes, he bloody wanted a boy, you moron, but that's not why my name is masculine. I also have a masculine name. People have confused me for a guy on paper, but I've never gotten that question. The dumbest I've ever had was, "You do know that's a guy's name, right? You just live around rude people, I guess." I was crashing with my brother and his wife for a mini vacation and catch-up visit since he had moved away. While I was there, he was still on duty, military, during the day, so I would help his wife around the house with stuff as she was in the last 1 or 2 months of pregnancy with the nephew at the time. At one point she needed groceries, so I rode with her to help with any heavy lifting. We went through as normal and got everything she needed, and while we were on the beer and liquor aisle, I asked her if I could hand her the cash for my beer and just tack it onto their total, since she was paying with a card to save time. She obliged, I handed her the cash and then put a 30-pack of bud in the cart. We have to check out and I'm unloading everything onto the conveyor belt and she's waiting to pay. I have no idea what's possessed this fricking clerk. This late 20s to early 30s woman decides to go all high and mighty and blurted out while scanning the beer, "You know, it's not wise to drink when you're pregnant." Jesus would have been awfully disappointed. I was about to pipe up that it was mine, but before I could even utter a single word, my sister-in-law says very flatly, "It's not for me, it's for my partner, and she isn't pregnant." The look on that cashier's face was priceless. So which of you is the girl in the relationship? Neither. Neither of us is the girl, we're both men. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.